Right, well, we've got another minute, but I'm just going to go ahead and get started. It is welcome to Hot Topics with Supervisor Jane Parker. It is Monday, June 1st, 5:30, and we're here every Monday to talk about issues happening in Monterey County. Most recently, we've had special guests come on to speak about issues specific to COVID and the county's emergency response, our healthcare response, and our economic response to dealing with the crisis of the pandemic. Tonight, we are so pleased to have Francine Rodd from First 5 Monterey County joining us. Supervisor Parker is unavailable tonight for the first time since the shelter-in-place order was issued, but I am here to host on Jane's behalf. My name is Wendy Root Askew, and I've had the pleasure and honor of working with Jane for the past 12 years. So we're going to do a couple quick housekeeping items. We are airing live on Facebook. So those of you who are on Facebook and want to ask questions, go ahead and type those into the comment box. If you are joining us via Zoom, you can type your comments or questions into the chat box, and we will be watching both locations for interactive conversation. Let's see here. We are also recording this meeting, and it will be posted to Supervisor Parker's YouTube page. So if you're curious, you can see some of our previous conversations about the county's response to COVID are all posted on the Jane Parker's YouTube page. So I want to take a couple minutes here to briefly update everyone about the status of the county's COVID response. So the state of California outlined, and I'm going to share a screen here so everyone can see. Let's see here. Nope, not that one. We're going to share a screen about the path that the county is following to reopen our economy. We're looking at this, following the state of California's process for making risk-based decisions about what businesses are opened. So stage one, which was where we started, where the stay-at-home order first went into effect, allowed only essential, this term, essential businesses to remain open. Those were healthcare, hospital facilities, first responders, emergency services, some very limited childcare for essential workers. We then moved into the beginning of stage two. And stage two allowed some construction and landscape gardening to reopen. That happened, I believe, earlier in May. Some golf courses reopened, some of our car washes reopened, pet grooming, dog walking, outside the business, retail to open, outdoor museums and some public spaces. And then in order for us to move beyond that initial stage two, we had to file a set of documents with the state of California. And those documents were called an attestation. The attestation meant that the county had plans in place to limit the spread of COVID and to respond to an increase in cases if that did occur as we continued reopening businesses. Our attestation documents were approved on Saturday, just this past Saturday. So with the attestation approval, we can now proceed with the opening of dine-in restaurants, hair salons, and barbershops, so long as all of these businesses are following very strict guidelines for how they maintain physical distancing, how they continue to require people to wear face coverings when they're inside the business, and a whole set of other additional requirements that those businesses are required to follow. All of this information is posted on the state of California's COVID website, and Cal OSHA and the California Department of Health are providing industry-specific guidelines and checklists for each of these businesses to follow as they reopen. So one of the things that, as a mom, I've got an 8-year-old at home, and I've been at home working since the beginning of, or mid-March. My husband is also here, and so is my son. And there are some real challenges with with us having responsibility for working while he's also still here learning and doing his homeschool. For many, many other families during the stage 1 and as we continue to open into stage 2, the challenges grow as you have parents being called back into the workplace. While yet our summer camps are all closed and our schools were closed and many of our traditional childcare options are closed. Typically for my family, summer would look like summer camp combined with shared care with groups of friends where we take turns. You take the kids for the morning and I'll take them for the afternoon and then get my work done in the evening. None of those options are available to us right now. And in addition to that, we have a lot of families who are struggling with very basic needs, like the ability to pay their rent, the ability to provide nutrition for their children. When we look at MPUSD, when we look at Monterey County and our school system, we had 1 in 10 of our students who was homeless before the pandemic hit. We have upwards of 70% of our students on the peninsula who qualify for free and reduced lunch. So those are kids who were relying on coming to school every morning, coming to school at lunch to be fed. And when schools closed, that changed everything for those families. Not only did many of those families lose an income, they also lost the resources that were available to help support them parent and raise their children. So as we continue to move into stage 2, there's this increasing pressure on families. And that's why we wanted to bring Francine Rodd on to join us today. I'm going to unshare here. But we've got Francine Rodd with us. Francine is the executive director of First 5 Monterey County. And I love working with First 5. I love working with the whole team over at First 5 because they're focused on how do we make things better for children. And usually that means how do we support families do a better job of wrapping around supports for their children? How do we as a community come together to support families so that our kids get the best start possible? And it's really like primary prevention work. It has long lifelong implications for those children, for those parents, and for our community as a whole. So it is my pleasure to introduce Francine. I'm going to pass the presentation over to you, Francine, and let you go ahead and talk a little bit about the work that First 5 is doing, the work, and why maybe COVID is making it more challenging for families, and what can we do about this? So we'll just keep it interactive, and I'm going to, I unshared our screen, and I'll just mention again, we have our chat box open let's see, we've got our chat box open on Zoom, and we have our comments active on Facebook Live. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in as we go, and we'll get to them as we proceed. But Francine, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Wendy, for having me. I really appreciate it, and the support that you and Supervisor Parker and everybody in the staff have provided to us over the years as well. So this is going to be a little bit of, I'm trying to share where to get different resources. So I'm going to be begging everybody for their patience as I flip around from various screens, and Wendy and Lori yell if you can't see something or something's not showing up that I'm talking about. So that'll start with the presentation here. And what I want to talk about today is a bit about First 5, but really more about the questions that you had asked us. But to start just a little bit about First 5, our mission is to enrich the lives of children prenatal through age 5 and their families by strengthening connections and advancing quality in a whole system of care and support. So as Wendy said, we really look at the whole child, the whole family, and to support everyone to improve the lives of children and families. So the topics that kind of were advertised for me to chat about today are resources for children and families, childcare. As Wendy mentioned, it's a challenge in non-COVID times. What do you do now? And I have some suggestions and some ideas. And then prioritizing families and children in difficult budget times, because what we're looking at now is similar to what happened in the Great Recession, and that was when the types of services and supports that are most needed to help preserve children and families' long-term outcomes are those that are most likely to be chopped. And we want to try and help to prevent that from happening. So, challenges in the time of COVID-19. So what kept coming to me was this commercial, and I think it's going to date me a little bit. This was the commercial about this is your brain, which was the egg, and this is drugs, a hot pan, and this is your brain on drugs. And so I don't know how many of you out there remember those old commercials, but I certainly do. And unfortunately, that's a little like how our brains are right now under COVID. We're living under constant toxic stress. So if you feel like you're on a boat and you can't get your sea legs, or you're on an escalator that is going down and you're going the opposite direction, you are not alone. And it's a physical and physiological brain response that is occurring right now. And when we have these types of stress responses, it puts us in a state of flight, fright, or freeze. And so it's not unusual for the types of things that we're seeing right now in our society, in our state, and in our nation to be happening in a time when people are under constant stress, toxic stress.
Francine, can you just speak a little bit to sort of some of the disparities that exist when we talk about that toxic stress, and how, you know, I can acknowledge that this is hard for my family, but I can also acknowledge that my fridge is full of food, that my child has access to technology that allows him to remain in contact with his friends. I can acknowledge that I'm not worried about paying my rent or my mortgage, and that I have, you know, my mom who's available to me, who's sheltering with us. So yes, this is hard, and I'll be the first to acknowledge I'm really struggling. But I'm also so aware that so many of when we talk about our hospitality workers, and 95% of them have lost employment.
Yep.
And 10 to 20% of those families don't qualify for the state benefits that are available. I mean, that's a different kind of toxic stress that those families are experiencing than what I'm experiencing.
Very much so. And, you know, it's been systematic. And so it's now at a point where a lot of families are breaking. And it's really sad, and it's something that we need to do something about now. I was very, very pleased with our Board of Supervisors today and their comments around what's happening in our nation, because they said it's enough. You know, it's time for us to really look at some of these structural impediments that have been put into place in terms of people not earning wages that can be livable, in terms of being told they could only live in certain locations for decades. You know, there's certain things that have been put in place by our systems that have prevented people from raising to a certain level or getting privilege. And that's what we need to be focused on, and making sure that we're making changes during a time like this, and that we learn from our past and we stop creating the same mistakes moving forward. And so that's one of the things I want to talk about, which is what builds. I mean, you're so right that I'm so lucky. I have lots of privilege that I grew up with myself, and I haven't had constant toxic stress of not knowing when food was going to be on the table, or where my next clothes were going to be coming from, or any of those things, which is what half of our children in our county are experiencing. And it falls along racial lines. And so it's something that we shouldn't ignore, and we should step into and lean into and say it's time to change. So I want to talk a little bit about what actually makes that change. And it is the need to balance and build resilience, right? So in order, the definition that the Harvard Center for the Developing Child says about resilience is that it's a good outcome in the face of adversity. And our children in our county, the majority of them right now, are facing adversity. So whether you're coming from a family that does have privilege or that does not, they're facing adversity right now during this pandemic. And that's the definition that the Harvard Center for the Developing Child has said. There's a link to their website, and there's a good video on their website that talks about the definition of resilience and adversity. And I can't.
Francine, I just want to interrupt you. One of the first speakers who we had on as a guest for Hot Topics right after the shelter-in-place order went, and it's a great recording, was Susan Swick from the AHANA program, the child mental health program that is being built out at Montage. And she spoke a lot about resilience. It was a great presentation. And for me, it really has been one of the messages that I continue to come back to as I think about myself personally. What is it that I need so that I can continue on even when I feel so overwhelmed? And then as a parent, it's one of the things that I keep thinking, how do I teach this to my son? Because one of the things she said, it's not one of those innate skills that you're just born with. It's one of these things that you can be taught and you have to practice. And so it's been one of those things with a seed planted in the back of my head weeks ago, and I have relied on that concept so much.
And that's great, and it's really important. And that website has some references and some documents relating to resilience as well, that if folks wanted to refer to, that's a good one. And so if you want to put that up in the chat, that would be great too, Wendy, so that folks have access to that as well, because it can't be overemphasized. In order to be able to surmount a situation that we're living in, we need to have resilience. And at that, we don't have a vaccine right now for COVID, but that would provide an inoculation against adverse childhood experiences, which we know can lead to a lifetime of health impacts, social emotional impacts, and academic impacts for our children. So that's a good source for information. So one of the things that they have on their website, and I put the link to that resource as well here, is a visual that shows what you're talking about. Because I heard Susan Swick too. I've been a great proponent of these hot topic talks and heard her talk, and then I'll also refer to somebody else that I heard talk earlier, because all of these resources are really important to continue to help support ours. And so yes, keep continuing to interrupt me as I go along. But the thing they talked about building resilience is, first thing you got to do is reduce the sources of stress. And some people can do this and some people can't. So that's where the inequities happen. So in terms of job loss, in terms of schools being closed, the whole situation with physical distancing, we never should have called it that. It should have been, we were calling it social distancing. Physical distancing is fine, but social connections is what we need. And then some folks have loved ones now with COVID or know someone with COVID. So there's all these negative outcomes that we need to balance with seeking responsive and supportive relationships and resources to help us overcome some of those negative outcomes. So that includes things like connecting to resources and supports, relying on the families that we do have, seeking our positive connections with folks in our communities. The brain grows the fastest between the ages of 0 and 3. And what happens in those critical years sets children up for a lifetime. And what we need to do is to make sure they have strong, supportive relationships, and a strong, loving relationship with a primary caregiver is the biggest determining factor to help build resilience. So that means that being there for those children doesn't have to be fancy. It can be just being there. And it means following their lead when they want to do something, taking time out and making sure to spend time with them in relationships where they actually have the opportunity to take the lead. A lot of times we're telling our kids, go here, go there, sit down, shut up, don't do coloring or what have you. And we need to actually not do that so much. We need to take the lead of the children and let them determine, let's do this right now, mommy, or read me a story, or do something by taking their lead so that they're building their own confidence in those relationships. Then, and
Francine, I just want to say how, like, what you said sounds so simple.
Yes.
But I'm telling you, it is so hard. And I'm aware of it happening. I'm aware of my son, who's 8, will say, cuddle, mommy, cuddle. And it's his way of saying, Mom, I need you close to me
Mm-hmm.
right now. And yet I'm feeling at that moment in time, I'm supposed to be finishing the dishes. I'm supposed to be starting a load of laundry. I'm supposed to be on a Zoom call that starts in 2 minutes. I'm supposed to be finishing up an email that was due 3 hours ago. And I'm supposed to be calling 2 other people back. And it's hard. It's really hard to say, I'm going to put all the rest of that on hold. I'm just going to sit on the couch with you while you play your iPad game, and I'm not interested in it, but you just want me to sit near you and have my attention be on the same thing that you're doing. It is really hard to do that.
It is really hard. And sometimes you can do things with him. So he can help you with the laundry. You know, he can help you cook. He could put away the dishes. You know, you use dishes that are plastic or what have you. So you don't care if they fall, or you have dishes that you don't care if get broken. So sometimes you can do things with your child. And then sometimes you do just need to set aside time. I used to have mommy time, we called it, with my kids. And that was time they got to choose what they did with me. And I set it aside. And then there was my daughter's name's Ariana, my son's name is Colton. And then there was Colton and Ariana time where I got to pick what I wanted to do with them. And it was like a fun thing. And we did that with my dad too. They had pop-up time. So having those special times, those special moments that you can kind of call out, and you know that you're going to be there for them and they're going to be there for you, is really critical. And so, yeah, sometimes the emails have to wait until later on, or sometimes they just don't get done. And you have to make time for you. They talk a lot about, and one of the things on one of the videos in the Harvard thing is about making sure you're putting on your own oxygen mask first before helping others. A lot of people use that plane analogy, because as a primary caregiver, if you're exhausted, if you're not full, we talk about in our house things coming out sideways. So we know if somebody's stressed about something, or didn't have a good day, that stuff can come out sideways. And so if you're not taking care of yourself and you're not saying, okay, Quinn, I get it, you want to spend time with me, mommy needs to go for a jog right now, and when I get back, I'll be in a much better headspace to be able to be with you. And pick activities that you may not be watching him play a video game, but you guys may be interacting together, so that would be my suggestion. Every family's different, and you have to figure out what works for you. I'm just telling you a little bit about what kind of has worked for me. And I know one of my coworkers, what she does is they always make sure they have dinner at night. And then at dinner, they talk about, one thing that happened that was great. Tell me one thing that you felt was great, and one thing that made you sad today. And having those kinds of conversations and making dinner kind of sacred is one way to also build those relationships too.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that for so many of us, we had a routine that worked well before the shelter at home, and before jobs were lost, and before things kind of got turned upside down. And then just to acknowledge that we're creating a whole new set of routines for a period of time that we don't know how long it will last. And it's so easy to talk about it. And I could talk about it all day long, but then when it comes, I'm the first to say, when it comes to putting on my own oxygen mask, like it's hard. I feel guilty. I feel like I'm letting my husband down. I feel like I'm letting my son down. But the truth is if I don't get out for that walk twice a week, on a hike in nature, like, I'm a better mom for it. But exactly. I have to really commit to overcoming all of the reasons why I shouldn't do that right now.
Correct.
So just acknowledging that that's hard. That's really hard. And it's a different kind of hard for moms and dads and caregivers right now.
And this is all new for all of us, right? And so it is really hard. And recognizing that and knowing that you're also not alone does help a little. It's still hard, but it helps a little to know you're not alone. But so then in terms of that strengthening of the core life skills, because we have kind of COVID brain right now is what I've been calling it. And you're forgetting things. I left my credit card at the gas station the other day. It's like, I never do that. So just, again, being kind to yourself, knowing that if you have, we're not fully here. So we need to be using more opportunities to write things down, make checklists, and then just be kind to yourself when you make errors, because you will. But having checklists, digital paper reminders, whatever system you have used in the past that has worked for you, now is the time to really do more of that, because it's, our brains are just not functioning the way they used to. So then one of the best ways to kind of level out that seesaw and get rid of reducing some of the stress and adding to the supportive, responsive relationships is to access resources. And one of those resources is the First 5 Monterey County website. I wanted to spend a little bit of time going over this a bit, because there's a lot of great resources on this website. We have, when you first go onto the website, and I think it's partly because I've had this up for a little while, and so it's not doing it automatically right now. It'll go to this hearts together, big and little hearts together, for the COVID-19 website. So if you just click on that, or you click here, you'll get to our community resources page. And so you guys can see this, right? Did I lose you?
Yep, it's up. We've got it.
Okay.
I'm following along. Yep.
Okay. So community resources, and this has, we're all navigating uncharted waters. And so a lot of the things you mentioned in your intro, people may not have access to food. They may have lost income. There's confusion around immigration supports. People may be experiencing anxiety or loneliness. There's links to various resources in our community for all of those things on our website. And then if they just want someone to talk to, or to reach out to our First 5 collaboratives, which I'll talk about in a second, you can also link here. There's also activities to do with children at home. And I'm hearing what you're saying, obviously, Wendy, is that sometimes parents are not having time to do activities with their children at home because they're trying to work at home, and and they were needing help with their homework. And now with summer coming along, I have a few resources for folks to be able to look at. But I want to remind folks that there are opportunities, if you have a job, for you to be able to take paid family leave. That's one of the things that this governor has made sure that folks are able to do. And you can be made almost whole by taking a few hours of paid family leave to be able to spend time with your family and your children. So these are some of the links that we have put on here on our website. And one of the ones that has a lot of resources is United Way has this COVID-19 resource Google Doc that shows, and it's in Spanish and English, that shows a lot of the services that are available in the county. And so this is a great resource for people to be able to access if they're looking for resources for various things, in addition to the ones that we have on our website. The other one that is really, I think, important to remember, and this was another one of your presenters, Dana Edgell from Behavioral Health, presented a few weeks ago. And her presentation was also, I thought, very good. And she had a PowerPoint, and I'm sure that's on your website as well. And here we have the Behavioral Health website with the various resources that they have. They've got this Forward Together initiative, and there are various classes and supports that are available for folks. There's this lovely book that one of the staff wrote, Angelina and the Cat Stays Home, a way to talk to your children about COVID-19. On our website, we also have some as well, links to some as well.
Yeah, the Monterey County Behavioral Health Forward Together initiative, I've logged on to a few of their workshops, and it's underutilized. It is a beautiful gem of a resource that's available to us. You can just look at the calendar and just hit the link, and you've got the one that I was on. I think they had 3 therapists who were available, who were answering questions and led us through a breathing exercise. It was another one of those times where like I felt like I didn't have time because I felt so overwhelmed with everything that I was responsible for. But I took that 20 minutes and everything in the rest of my day changed. Thank you for bringing that up, Francine.
Yeah, no, it's a really great resource, and they're really wonderful folks. So let's see here. Back to my PowerPoint from current slide. So we talked about the First 5 Monterey County website, and it has the information on mental health from behavioral health. It also does have this link to Quality Matters, which has some resources for COVID-19 as well. And this website has information for parents as well as providers. And what's interesting about this one is that it includes the guidelines for when you're reopening an ECE site. So they have done a video. It's kind of long.
When you say an EC, can you just use the words?
Sorry, early childhood educator site. So for those that who might be watching who are early childhood educators and are wondering what the restrictions are and how to open up a site, they have this video that they did in English and Spanish that walks them through the various challenges. And we also have—
And Francine, we don't have your PowerPoint up or your shared screen up. Do you want to try sharing that one more time? While you're getting that set up, I'll just mention in our comments, we've got a couple awesome folks. We've got, I think Katie Castagna from United Way was on earlier. We've got also Bia Songo from our Monterey County Free Libraries. And she just wanted to make sure that everyone knew to check the Monterey County Free Libraries website because they will be offering lunch at the library at all locations 1 day per week and doing an online summer reading program via Zoom that I will be signing my family up for. So we've got you. You're up again. Okay, perfect, Francine.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm sure the schools are going to be doing something over the summer too. They did in the past because they recognize that in terms of the free and reduced lunch and people who need free and reduced lunch, that there's going to be a gap there since school is closed. So we have a space on our website where for the food, we'll update that with information around what the school districts are doing related to food as well.
That's awesome. And I think for the time being, the County Office of Education has a full link to all of the food programs that are available through the end of school. And Carissa from the Family Resource Center put together a map. So there's actually a Google map that has just every food site that's available throughout the county. And many of the districts will be continuing. I know Monterey Peninsula Unified will be continuing with multiple summer lunch sites for any child under the age of 18 who can just stop by and grab a lunch.
Yep. Yes. That'll be very important. So here's the Quality Matter site, which, as I said, has various resources as well. And for any child care provider who might be interested, there's information on that for how to access what the rules and the regulations are related to that. Then I also wanted to share with you Bright Beginnings. So Bright Beginnings is an initiative that coordinates anyone who's really interested in ages 0 to 8. And what it does is really helps all of us who are working in this space be more coordinated with each other around different topics that are important for children and families. And one of them right now is emergency childcare and or just childcare. So we're looking at a response and recovery for childcare and well-being. And this is the website. If you just go to www.brightbeginningsmc.org, there's a COVID page, and then that has information about what's happening in the early childhood space related to childcare. Here, people can click on various things, like if you want to find childcare, there's a flyer in English and Spanish. There's also an invitation to be able to join the meetings that happen every Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. if people are organizations or entities and are interested in knowing about it, or even parents can join. Anybody can join. But in terms of,
I want to speak real briefly. So this idea, this concept of bright beginnings, I think it all started back in 2012 when Professor Heckman came to visit and spoke to our business community about the importance and significance of early childhood development as it related to economics and sort of the economic health of a community. And at that point, it was what we needed from the supervisor's office to be able to make the case to the county that really the county should be investing in early childhood development. And for me, it was one of the first wins where we were able to get county dollars to fund a non-mandated program. Most of the county dollars go to fund these requirements. We're required to provide, child protective services, so therefore we fund it. We're required to have a jail, so we have to fund it. But knowing that if we could make some of these early investments, if we could take just a little bit of that money and put it into early childhood education and coordination and raising the status of the families who were advocates, during this whole COVID crisis, it's never been so clear to me that if you don't have a lobbyist working on your behalf to get your issue in front of the decision makers, your issue is not being heard. And the value that Bright Beginnings has brought to our county and our community in terms of raising the awareness about the significance of early childhood investments, whether it's county dollars or school district dollars or city preschool programs, across the board, it's changed the way that we talk about the value of investing early. If we could take that $10 and put it into early childhood and save $50 or $100 over the life of that child because they don't end up involved in our probation system or our public safety system or our public assistance programs, it really is the kind of investment that makes our community the place where we all want to live and be together. So I just had to shout that out. It's one of the things I'm most proud of in the work that we've done together with Jane and First Five. And before we move on, I added Anna Farr. You mentioned childcare options, and First Five, Monterey County, and the childcare, the Monterey County Child Care Council, that I'm going to say wrong, has a database of childcare providers.
So it's actually funded by the state. So there's what they call an R&R, resource and referral, for every county. And MAOF, the Mexican American Opportunity Fund, was selected to operate our resource referral in our county. And so there's somebody who's selected by the state of California to run all of the licensed child care provider networks. And so I'm sharing again, the one that we have connected with is the www.montereycountychildcare.org. And it is let me see here. I want to find it for you. Go ahead and link to it. And so it's the one that is funded by the state to operate our child care programs in our county. The license, not operate them, but have them listed on the website and to be able to support people to access them. So
if you're a parent looking for childcare, it's a one-stop shop where you can go and look and see, I live in this zip code, I'm looking for childcare during these hours, my child is this age, and it helps parents locate licensed childcare providers. There's another program that just got started, and Anna Farr fan from SEIU 521 is going to join us. I'm going to unmute Anna just for a minute, or Anna just for a minute, so she can briefly announce that. And then so parents now have multiple options. Hold on here. Let's see. Anna, are you there? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can. Okay. Do you want to just take a brief minute and talk a little bit about Carina Care?
I sure do. Here, if you don't mind, let me see here.
Why don't you also type the website into the chat, and I can pull it up too.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that in a bit. So let me just explain. It's very quick and simple and easy because we at SEIU, we were going to launch Karina Care at the end of the year. We were going to do a pilot with it. It's been working wonders in other states throughout the United States. But due to the pandemic, we had to put a rush on it. So what we're doing is the childcare providers, they now have a, they will be voting on it, but now they're going to be voting on their union. And so this is throughout California. And so what we ended up doing due to the pandemic for our members is we just pushed it. We launched Karina Care. So then this was back in March. Everything was done, what was supposed to be done, and ready to go at the end of the year, got done within a week and a half. So pretty much what it is a resource for parents where providers, they create their own profile. Everything is pretty much done through their cell phone. And their profile is very simple. It has their name, their information, license number, and a short bio of themselves. And eventually they'll be able to add more. But right now, due to the rush and then the need, that's what we ended up doing. It was just short and simple. But pretty much with Karina Care, it was able to, it gave the opportunity for parents to actually get those essential workers to look at, and it really was just promoted to essential workers. That's what we pushed for. And so parents, them essential workers, were able to log on to Karina Care, put in their information, what their needs, where they were looking for childcare. And it did give them a list of licensed childcare providers, and pretty much connected them. So what parents are able to do is either text, call, or email the childcare providers directly. There's no R&R or anybody else in between. It's a direct contact. These are all licensed childcare providers, and it just connects parents to the actual providers. And
one of the things about it that I thought was so awesome, and that I just think we just have to take a minute to celebrate the victory of having childcare providers given the opportunity to join a union and create their own union. I mean, like that's a big deal. So thank you for your work on that. And
oh, definitely. Yes. No, thank you. Thank you for recognizing it. It's a humongous deal. I mean, the ballots will be going out later this month. Only childcare providers will be able to vote. And right after, they're going to be able to begin negotiations. This is a field that has not been recognized. And now and so here's something that I feel it's important to share. We had a lobby visit this morning with a childcare provider and a senator. And what was stressed is that childcare providers were able to apply for unemployment during this pandemic. And as of April 22nd, I believe. And many of them decided, and they were actually going to make more on unemployment than staying open. Many of them decided to not close and stay open, even though it meant that they were going to make less. But it was because they know that the need is there and they love what they're doing with the children. They care so much about the children, and it's so important to really recognize that. So yeah, and this is the type of providers parents are going to be getting. I'm not dismissing anybody else, but all child providers should be recognized.
Yeah, well, Hannah, thank you so much. And, cheers for all of our childcare providers who really do give so much. And a lot, I mean, I think the thing that for me has just been striking in the stay-at-home orders and then bringing people back to work, and the loudness of the how how little talk there's been about the need for childcare and the need for schools as we expect the economy to reopen without ensuring that we have adequate, well-compensated, quality care for our children. I would not be able to go back to an office right now because I don't have care for my child that's safe, that's clean, that's sanitary. And I think that, you know, the work that First Five is doing to be a coordinator and bring these conversations together to elevate not just the need for kids to have what they need, but to elevate the profile of caregiving as an essential industry that allows everything else to function. Without childcare, without quality childcare that parents feel comfortable leaving their children, whether that's in a classroom, whether that's in aftercare, whether that's in the 0 to 5 age range, parents are not able to go to work and work productively if they're worried about where their babies are.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
having our care workers unionized, I think, is a huge step in the right direction to professionalize them and to give credit, to give value where value is, where there's true value existing and has been existing for a long time. I'm watching the clock and I want to keep us rolling. I'm going to throw it back to Francine, and then one other person I wanted to just make sure we leave time for is Melanie Allen, who's one of our MPUSD school nurses who's joined us tonight, who's working on making sure that all of the safety criteria are in place for MPUSD to reopen preschool for the summer. So we'll get to you next, Melanie. But Anna, thank you again so much for joining us. And we shared the link for Carina Care both on Facebook and on Zoom. And so there's 2 options at this point for families who are looking for childcare options. We have the MAOF childcare locator that is linked to from First Five's webpage. And we also have the Carina Care program. And I'm sure that as time goes on, those 2 will begin working more closely together.
Definitely. And there's all that meeting that happens on Tuesdays is open to anyone, like I said, and we encourage multiple organizations or entities to participate in this. And so this is the childcare, the information that is accessible from the Monterey County Childcare website, and people can sign up as an essential worker. There's funding that's coming straight from the state that covers essential workers. And the people who answered this phone number will help do a warm referral in terms of checking to make sure that the licensed site actually has a space to make the referrals. And I want to say that we don't fund MAOF. We're just here to try and help make sure people get childcare. And I'm so excited that Carina Care exists as well, so that people can use either resource to try and find childcare. They're all under the same licensed requirements and would be found in this site as well. So we would love to be able to coordinate and collaborate on that as well. I just wanted to also talk a little bit about summer camps. I know that was another big issue that folks were looking at and looking towards. And one of the things that I did find out is that there are summer camps that are happening this summer, and that some of the organizations that are providing them include the YMCA, First Night.
Francine, I think your screen fell off again. You want to try to share that slide?
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and share the information about, here's the Monterey Bay Parent has, if you go to their directories, they have a summer camp section on their website. And so it talks a little bit about different organizations who are doing summer camps. Now they're charging for these, but like I said, also the Y, the SPCA, there's minimal charges for some of those. The other thing that is interesting is that in the May 1st attestation that the Moreno did, Ed Moreno put out, does talk about the requirements for summer camps. And so I wanted to share with folks what some of those were and let people know about that. So this was included in the Monterey County Health Department order from May 1st. It says, to the extent possible, programs must operate under the following conditions, carried out in stable groups of 12 or fewer, and that's for things besides childcare. Childcare, formal care needs to be sizes of 10 or less. Children need to not change from one group to another. And then if more than one group of children is cared for at one facility, each group has to be in a separate room and the rooms can't mix. And that the providers need to remain solely with one group of children. So those are some of the restrictions that exist right now. We've been hearing that there's going to be more and more guidance that's going to be coming out. And as you mentioned, that there's a website at the state level that has guidance for all of the different businesses. And so right now for childcare, it's for licensed childcare, and it talks about having groups of 10, has a lot more information about sanitation and things like that, things that need to happen in the classroom to help make sure that the children are safe and that the teachers are safe. As you mentioned, there's a lot that we need to do to help raise our children together in Monterey County. We know from the Heckman data that $1 invested in early childhood brings back $13 to our economy. And that what we do in those early years makes a huge difference. So I did just want to remind people again, we saw today in the hearings at the county level, because of the dire situation related to COVID, there's a number of services that are going to be cut. And it's really critical for the health and development of our children to ensure that services maintain for childcare. As Anna mentioned, a lot of the family childcare providers have remained open. We've lost about 16% of our family childcare homes over this COVID crisis. However, 77% of our centers have closed. And part of it is they can't make ends meet. If you only have 10 kids in a room, compared to what you would have had previously of 24 with extra adults, you're not going to be able to pencil out the cost. So we need to make sure our legislators understand that in terms of trying to keep our centers and even the other family childcare businesses afloat, we need to be advocating for additional help and support for them as they start to look at ways to reopen, and their business models need to be accommodating for that. So what can people do?
That was going into a situation again where we only had, I think it was at one point for every child that who had a working parent who needed childcare, we only had, 25%. For those families, 25% of the need was being met with licensed childcare, and it went up, I believe, in some areas it was up to 40%. But at no point in time did we ever have capacity in licensed childcare to fill or to hold all of the children who needed access to licensed childcare. So the loss of any childcare spaces is devastating.
It's devastating, and that was even worse for infants. So it's really hard to provide infant care because the ratio has to be so much higher. You need more adults to care for smaller numbers of infants. And so it's more expensive. And yet, as you said, those providers are paid peanuts compared to how we compensate other folks in our communities. So we don't have a balance here of where we're not putting our money where our values are in terms of trying to make sure that our children are really cared for in a comprehensive way. So
and that our children are cared for, and that our workforce has the supports that they need.
Correct.
When we're talking about our hospitality and our agricultural workforce, that these are families, these are workers who don't make a lot of money, who have children. If we want to have a workforce that is available to run our economy, run these foundational economic pillars of our economy, we have to ensure that their children have a safe place to be cared for while those parents work.
Yep, it's very true. So, what can we do to kind of try and fix this or work on it? One thing is advocacy. Like Anna was saying, they were out visiting with legislators. That's what we need to do. We also need to send in letters of advocacy. There's a Central Coast Early Childhood Advocacy Network. And so joining that and being an advocate for children, going to public meetings and saying words of support. I understand at the latest Marina board meeting that there was some wonder about what about childcare, because everybody recognizes if I got to go back to work, who's watching the children? And if there aren't enough spaces for them to be that are of quality, what are we going to do? So we need to be out there advocating for more funding for this, not cutting those services and supports, and providing at the state level and the federal level more support for early childhood development supports for children and families.
And Francine, one of the things that I think I've seen First Five do that pivoting most incredibly with COVID is that typically your advocacy has been around those early years. But as we realized with the closure of schools and employees still needing to now go back to work and the lack of summer care that's available, you really have pivoted to say, you know, it's not just early care that we're talking about. It really is, it starts with early care, but it's relevant across the age spectrum. So a lot of the advocacy that you're engaging in is broader than it's ever been. That the need that suddenly has arisen.
That's true, and as part of it's because we're part of that coalition for Bright Beginnings as well, which is 0 to 8. And so that is something that we're very much committed to. And the Child Care Planning Council is from 0 to 12. So all of us together are really care about that entire spectrum. The other thing that we've done is we've met the immediate need of like diapers and wipes in the community too. I didn't even talk about that because that wasn't one of the things we were talking about today, but that was one of the things that what our main thing is we see a gap and we move to fill it. And so that was one of the things that we've also really done that's totally outside of our comfort zone. I never thought it'd be delivering diapers and wipes in the community, but if that's what's needed for our children and families, that's what we do.
And I'll say that there remains a need for diapers and wipes. And we did hit a point where it was difficult to purchase them at the grocery store. And so we weren't asking people to donate them, but we've now reached another point where they are more available at the grocery store, but the food bank would appreciate donations. And Francine, if you have the ability to make large donations of diapers, wipes, that is something that families continue to have a need for.
Yes, and so we're still doing those distributions in the community as well, because we recognize even though they're expensive. And so given the the stress on people's budgets, that they don't want to have to make a choice between that and food. So we are continuing to fund that and provide distribution in the community as well. And so folks can donate as well to like the COVID Relief Fund. I think United Way has a fund as well for to try and help some of the FFNs and family, friend, and neighbors in our community. So there's ways to, whether or not you feel like you could speak out, write letters, just get newsletters to stay informed, or providing funding to help to support during this time. So that's basically what I had besides my information for people to really reach out to me if there are any questions or concerns, or any of the links that we've provided today don't work. Like if someone tries to reach out to the Child Care Resource and Referral and doesn't get a match or get heard, I want to know about it, because we're trying to fix those gaps in our communities. So please do reach out.
Well, Francine, we use up an hour really quickly. That I could talk to you for days. But I really appreciate how significant the work that First Five is doing has always been in our community. And I value you and your team and your advocacy and your boots on the ground and the training that you offer and the encouragement and the education that you're providing to our elected officials, to our city leaders, to our school districts, to our business community. You know, it's important. It's important. It's like the most important thing that we've got is figuring out how to take care of this next generation of leaders. And if we leave them with their brain sizzled because we were unable to respond to the trauma that's occurring, we really are, we're missing the boat, and we're going to have much larger problems, down the line. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of Supervisor Parker, on behalf of, everyone in our community. We are richer and stronger and healthier because of the work that First Five does and continues to do.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Same right back at you, Wendy. Really appreciate it.
So it is 6:29. I want to make, I did want to give Melanie Allen just a moment to speak about, Melanie Allen is our school nurse from Monterey Peninsula Unified School District, and she's doing all the preparation work to get our preschools ready to open this summer. So I wanted to give Melanie, if you just want to take like 1 minute to give a quick update, and then I will wrap us up and have us out of here in just a few minutes.
Hi there, everyone. I'm not the only one working on this. It is a group effort. I really can't take all the credit, but there is careful and thoughtful planning that is underway with an anticipated start date of our students arriving for preschool on July 6th, which is exactly actually 5 weeks from today. So we are meeting weekly and thinking constantly about how to do it safely. Francine brought up some issues that are of concern, such as that Dr. Moreno had mentioned in his attestation, and definitely we are taking, into consideration stable cohorts, health and safety protocols, disinfection and cleaning processes, making sure we have all of those in place for the arrival of students, and we're accepting students ages 3 to 5 for the program.
And that's at the Seaside Child Development Center and the Marina Child Development Center, right, Melanie?
Actually, we're having the Marina Child Development Center is undergoing some renovations, so we will have 5 classes opening up at the Seaside Center.
And do you happen to have a phone number? I know people can go to the MPUSD website to get information about how to enroll their 3 to 5 year olds in preschool this summer, but do you happen to have contact information if they want to get more information?
Well, I would go to the website. Off the top of my head, I actually do not have the phone number.
Okay, no, that's fair.
But that's where I would go. And the district does receive phone calls. I would make a phone call, and then they would direct you appropriately to the right person to register. But we do have registration happening.
That's great. And I think for, as a parent, one of the things I worry about is the health and safety of my child being out, after we've been at home for so long, and knowing that we have incredible community nursing leaders like yourself, Melanie, who are ensuring that all of the protocols are being followed, and the sanitation and everything to make sure that my child stays safe, it matters. And it's one of the things that I'll be considering as a parent as I think about, how we begin to reintegrate while this
Melanie,
virus.
can you,
Yeah,
Melanie, can you provide us with the website address, and I can add it to the chat, please?
Oh, sure. I'll put it in the chat.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Great. All right, well, thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Francine. And to wrap us up, we're just a few minutes late. Jane Parker, Supervisor Jane Parker, hosts Hot Topics every Monday at 5:30. The same Zoom link every Monday, or you can follow us live on her Facebook page. We have different guests join us to talk about different issues facing Monterey County. Next week, I believe we have Senator Bill Monning, who will be joining us to talk about some of the state response. And we've got, I think the following week after that, that would be June 15th, I believe it is, we have our county budget director who will be joining us to talk about the county budget. Budget hearings will continue tomorrow. The county board is looking at its decisions for a $1.6 billion budget. And so we'll be chatting more about the county budget on the 15th. But thank you again for joining us. Thank you all. As Jane would say, smile under your mask, be kind, and stay safe. So thanks for joining us, Francine. Thanks for joining us, Anna. Thanks for joining us, Melanie. And we'll see you same time, same place next week. Take care.
Thanks, Wendy.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.